Hello, my channel mammals, and welcome back to Yankee. It's so great to see you here today, even though what I'm going to talk about we cannot see here today. It used to be right here, right in front of us here, and now it's whoop, gone. It's off to another adventure and another voyage in another world. But there's so much to learn from it. I think we can learn right here today, together, virtually. Well, we'll be together virtually. And the object we're going to talk about, or which will be the impetus for our talk, is gone. We were spending so much time trying to get it out of the boat and get on to upstate, where we had to get it all ready to be shipped off, and lots of other things to do up there. All of a sudden, we realized it was gone, and we'd never made a complete video of the working of it. Just little pieces and parts and just crazy nonsense. And I just thought, oh, it's gone, it's over. And we never really expressed it. And it turns out it's one of the most important things ever that came out of the movement of MacKenzie-Childs. And now it's gone. It's in a new world. It's never gone. But I just started realizing that there's more that we can be learning from that experience. So here we are together, and it's going to be great fun to pretend it's here, and maybe you'll see some photos whilst I'm talking, and you'll get a little idea of what we were doing. Okay, well, I believe I told you in one of the upstate videos about a big storm that came to our house in our upstate home in King Ferry, New York. Well, you know, the whole chimney, this is a very ancient house, so it was probably more frail in areas that we didn't ever know about. The whole chimney in a big storm, I'm talking about a big storm that came across the big open fields that went on forever up there, and just built power as it went. It ripped the chimney off the end of the house and took some of the house with it. And it was a big project to mend and rebuild, and it was a wonderful project because it opened up new opportunities for us to think differently about how to do things better in that respect. So it was all part of growth and growing up with our house. But anyway, what was with us then and for many years before, I don't even know how it came into our experience, was this beautiful table. It's a library table, you know, and but it was a special library table. It was a library table that turned into a bed with a headboard and a footboard and a mattress and everything you could need for a quiet night's sleep at the library. You know how people say, I'm going to have to spend an all-nighter at the library? Well, this library table took that very seriously. So we had this table. It was just old, dark brown varnish, crinkled up varnish, nothing special. It wasn't special to us. It was a work table. Once in a while, I could scooch all the things we were working on off and put a big bouquet of flowers on it. Or, but you couldn't really sit down to a meal because it was a library table. So the skirting of it was deeper, and it wasn't really a place to sit. But we'd work on things on it and just use it like a workbench, basically. It was sturdy and heavy. You could hardly move it, all made of steel inside. So, well, when in the midst of this, in the middle of the cold, cold winter, this project went on, I think, almost a full year or season. I'm terrible at this kind of thing, so don't quote me on this, but it was definitely winter. And Richard was tending the fire. I think Heather was already in bed, and my mother was visiting us. I don't think my papa was there then, but I think my mom was there. And so I said, after dinner, we were just sitting quietly, and I said, Mom, why don't we paint this library table? And she looked at me like I had three heads, because in that time, we forget. People didn't paint furniture decoratively. They might find an old dresser or a rocking chair or something that they'd put in a baby's room, and they'd think, oh, well, this should be pink, or this should be blue, or, to brighten up the baby's room, and just to make something do. Or maybe something had been painted white, but it was all chipped up from the 20s or something, and they'd give it a new coat of paint. But nobody really did anything, because wood was very important, and people loved the beauty of wood at that period. Even dinnerware, it was all stoneware. It was brown and just one color, or blue, or but just or beige. It was very much a time of admiring nature as it was, and all the fabrics were linen or cotton or wool. Everybody turned against the silliness of synthetic fabrics that were happening in the generation, or the decade before, and so forth. So you can see, for someone to say, let's paint this table and have fun with it, my mother looked at me like I was, like, what? But it was the best night's conversation, because I'll never forget it, if for nothing else, the conversation. I got out our paints, oil paints and brushes and sponges and rags and whatever we needed, turpentine, whatever we needed, feathers, and from the chickens, and all kinds of fun, just little things that might have been fun. Because I was just seeing it as a piece of furniture that nobody cared about, that could be an experiment for ideas, kind of like when you take a piece of linen and you make a, what did they call those? When people would practice their alphabet in embroidery and flowers and so forth. Oh, that's silly. Anyway, if I think of it, I'll print it across the screen. Everybody knows. A sampler. It's like making a sampler out of a piece of furniture instead of out of a piece of linen. And for practicing. So as I was painting, first of all, our conversation got deeper and higher and richer and more. It kind of melded in with the painting. It didn't really wander in one direction. It was just little titches of this, little giggles of that, little disappointments in this and that, and commentary about the world or whatever happens when we're together intimately with our friends or our family. And so I'll never forget that time. It was like a true mother-daughter experience, whatever that is. That was one. And so, but I remembered specifically feeling through the end of the brush as if it was a finger painting. Even though I was using a brush, I remember feeling the thickness of the paint, and the swirls and the things that it did, and playing with it and smearing it and doing and adding layers and tiny little dainty borders, and I don't know, everything just became alive like I'd never seen before, because it was the first time a piece of furniture had been painted by following its form and also having no responsibility for what it's supposed to come out to be. That's the key. The key is it cannot be precious. Nothing that we do can be precious. It must be just something that crosses our path, and it's like, blink, there it is, and don't worry about what it has to say. Just enjoy making it of the moment. And I think that that's an important quality in the discovery of MacKenzie-Childs and the movement of it. I think it's moved everybody's own thought about their relationship with objects. They don't need to stick with so many rules and patterns and functions and history and importance. I remember one time some friends of ours, long ago, asked us if we would help them to decorate their house in Washington, D.C. And it was really funny because I didn't really, it kind of crossed my mind that this might be, I wasn't sure, but I just had to just do it. I mixed up what they had in their living room. It might end up in a laundry room or in a cupboard, or you know, everything was mixed every which way, and something from the cellar brought up, or something from, you know, a junk room or a work room, or I'd say, oh, look at that, it has wheels, or oh, look at that, it's you know, it's a funny, odd thing. And the woman, the young woman whose house it was she was a sort of nouveau riche person. She came from a very harsh family background and had made it. And for her to see me just unabashedly playing with what was important, that all needed to be in the main room, in the main living room, that the important things needed to be there, and then the less and less important things in other places tucked away. And I completely disregarded that rule. And it was really jolting, because I didn't mean to be disrespectful, but it did turn out that it wasn't at all what they would have wanted. That's why at that point I thought I should never do something for somebody else in their home. Or on their body, even clothes and even food. I think it's too personal. And so people can buy a teapot because it's at arm's length. You know, they can appreciate something that isn't quite connected to them. It's not quite their home. It's just a little complement to their home. Or food, no. And the same thing, because they have very particular ideas, everybody does, about food or whatever. And so I thought, I should never be a decorator. I mean, I never wanted to be a decorator. It was just doing it as a friend. But I learned a lesson that way. So anyway, the thing is, it should not be important to us. So this piece of furniture grew with the conversation. And my mother painted a mural on top of that very night. A full moon falling into the atmosphere behind the dusty trees, and the snowflakes, and the deer just quietly, barely stepping from one place to the next, looking for this little blade of grass or this crisp little last bit of leaf. And you see them in the stillness of the night. You feel this quietude coming over all the earth. And then all the things on the table, also we didn't paint it white first, so it wasn't a light ground, it was a dark ground. So everything is muted and deep and rich, and it actually looks beautiful together. It's almost that when you first see it from a great distance, like a mile away, you wouldn't think it was painted. You might think it's just weathered. But when you get closer and closer, you see, oh, well, there's this and that and the other thing and all kinds of everything but the kitchen sink in visual terms on this table. So that was a great thing, because it elicited so much joy and so much beauty in its own sort of way that it influenced me forever. And there I was, alone then, with this thing that had grown on me and grown out of my own individuality, and it had this great meaning to it, this great substance. It became the beginning of MacKenzie-Childs making furniture and painting it according to its shape and according to one's willy-nilliness. You know, it fit right together with the individual willy-nilliness and the individual structure. And it just started to explode in every sort of shape, like fish becoming polka dots or parts of trees. I mean, who would have thought that? Only just just this experience of being alone with one's own individual thoughts. And so that's why that table is so important. It's so important because it released a new freedom and liberation within. And it also provided the beginnings of a whole new division in our work at MacKenzie-Childs beyond ceramics. And it elicited others, and it just was like this wonderful tumbling, bumbling weed of snarls and expressions that just never ended. And it also provided more work for people, local work for people, and new skills to learn and to master. And it also encouraged people at home, and I was always excited about being part of someone's encouragement to explore. They would start to paint their own little things that were around their own dwellings. And this is an important part of this conversation. I actually didn't plan on having this as part of the conversation. I don't really rehearse. I almost hardly know what I'm saying one word after another. But this is important now. I see it coming. Is when people copy someone, it's very natural when you think of a wee one who's copying their parents about how to eat and where does the food go and how does it get there, and how to speak and how to have manners, next level, and constantly building upon that. And then as they grow into the confidence of the basic structure of ethics and manner and function, then they blossom into their own individuality. A friend of mine one time said, people raise their children to be individuals and then they're shocked when they are. I thought that was really cute. So anyway, we should realize that that is a natural part of learning, is the respect, the love of something, and thinking, okay, I can learn to express an idea. At least I could start with that, because I don't know where to begin, but I'll begin with that. And that's all great. That's the way we learn naturally. But where it becomes unnatural is when it becomes what they call a knockoff or a copy or a plagiarism of somebody else's ideas and work. And I'm not really the right person to talk about this, because I always felt that if I said anything about this, it would look like I was fighting for my own rights. But because I know where my rights come from now, more than ever did I before, even then I think I did. In fact, I just always knew that God's infinite supply gives us infinite ways to go beyond even ourselves. So somebody's copying close behind, and sometimes too close behind, and sometimes taking over. Well, God brings us to another avenue, another way, because it's endless. Our individual journeys are endless, and they're narrow. They're meant just for us. And the idea of encroaching upon one's work, it's an important thing mentally to think about within ourselves. What is our ethic? What is our moral? What is our responsibility? And at what point is it time to spring off of that and start to say, okay, I don't want to just copy MacKenzie-Childs all my days or chase after that rainbow when I have my own within. And I need to, even though it's scary for me, I need to find that. And some people have found a conservatism, not politically at all, I don't mean that in the same way at all, but a rigidity within doing this work that makes them feel comfortable and at home. Not really at home, but in a staid way, so that there's nothing that they could do to make a mistake, you see. Because invention is full of mistakes. It's full of failures. And, you know, I think about Leonardo da Vinci. Do you know that only 100 of his works, of his life works, exist? And most of his life works self-destructed within his own duration in this belief we call life. Right then, the paint would fall off the mural, all kinds of things would break and fall apart. And because he was always pushing it, he was always experimenting with mixtures and materials. And so there was a lot of failure. And I thought that was an interesting comparison, that whenever we're doing something that's new to us, that we've never known before, and maybe nobody else has, we're going to have failures. Or even designing a company that fails. The greatest entrepreneurs almost always have to have 1 or 2 bankruptcies or 5 or 7, because they're always running fast in this wonderful adventure of experimentation, of how can I make a better, how can I make us stronger, how can I invent, how can I change the world, whatever. And sometimes it lands back on our own heads. And we need to learn from those things. But we also need to appreciate the fact that we have learned from those things, and appreciate those things in that as well. So back to copying, you might start with a formula, you know, what's in the book formula. How do I start a business? How do I make a cake? Whatever. But then you say, okay, I got that down. I got the basics. I got the techniques. I've got the rules of the matter I'm working with. But now let's get to the spirit of my own invention that I've never seen, that I don't know. And that's where each person needs to depart. And when I see that people are making, sometimes money captures people because they know they can sell it, you know, or they're commissioned to do something that, you know, is knocking something else off that was an invention. And they think, oh, well, it's public domain because that person's not doing it anymore or whatever. But even for their own right, you know, for their own sake, they need to be free of that, so that they can, the world needs all of us. Eternity needs all of us. Every single facet of color and light. That's why we are. And we are all of the same source, but we all, our light lands on always a different thing, a different way. And we need to explore what that is. And for our own sakes, we need to be free of that. And so it's something that naturally comes as an evolution, and sometimes takes longer for some than others. But hopefully right now, someone might be listening to this who felt kind of trapped, not trapped in a bad way. Maybe they're just so happy in that little trap and so grateful, and they mean it with all due respect. Usually people do mean it with due respect, but is it really respectful? Is it really? Because what it does is it turns individual expression into fashion, because it becomes like this milled thing that everybody everywhere is doing, and it after a while the superficial look of it becomes tired and it goes out of fashion. And whereas if we can keep the original, then it always has a place. It always has a place, because it's not wearing out our vision with sameness. The whole idea was that it was one individual idea. And we can do that to ourselves by reproducing ourselves too many times. You know, you see it with rock stars or actors or anybody who does a little too much of themselves. And pretty soon it's like, ugh, more of so-and-so or such and such, and oh, another blah, blah, blah. And so we need to always be reinventing. I don't mean reinventing so much as starting from scratch, but evolving, ever-evolving. That's my word, my contribution in the word world. So, well, I think we've spoken quite enough about all of that without our little friend being present here, and just knowing that it's blessing and brightening another whole new world, and who knows what it becomes. So I just want to say how much I appreciate you all being here with me today, and I hope we meet again soon. It's been hard to get videos made lately, but we're here, we're loving you, we're knowing we'll be back together, and sometimes there are little lulls when other things have to happen, but it always comes back, circles back. We'll never not be friends, ever. Hi, my channel mammals. Wow, that was quite a feat, but we managed. So I'm very grateful. I'm so grateful for Jonathan and for Richard and for Matthew, and we got the whole thing done. And this morning I didn't even have a chance to tell you that about what we were doing. We were loading it all in, as you saw, into Yankee Baby, the truck, and we call it YB for short. And all I have to do now is get this plank here that we walked up and down and put it back in the horse carriage over there. Do you see that? And then we're going to tie it up in a tarp and go off to teach Sunday school and head on our way upstate right after that. And it's all here ready. We're going to wrap it in a tarp. All of the whole thing here. So I just wanted you to have a little bit of a chance to be with us. You didn't see everything, but it was fun to share the move with you. And maybe someone will take it all the way on the other end back in over in California, where it's headed. And much love to you. Thanks.